Probably my favourite company in 2023 was Radiance, who released 36 movies in this year, and there wasn't one in amongst it that I didn't like. In fact, pretty early on throughout the year, I started to realise that they were releasing some pretty special stuff. Every movie was significant in one way or another, and I really kind of began to trust them. Delving into some of the releases where I didn't know too much about the films, but I had that trust within them that I was going to enjoy something or find it relevant or enlightening in one way or another. I have enjoyed their releases immensely, and I have had a bit of a dilemma. I wanted to do a top 10. I wanted to try and whittle down the films into my 10 favourites. Not necessarily the best movies they released, but ones that I enjoyed the most. That was a hard task to do, but I feel as if I've got there. And although it could change as soon as I finish this video, I'm going to dive in and give you my top 10 releases this year. Now, there are a couple of individual movies out of sets within this one, but we'll talk about them when we get to them. So first up, at number 10 was the Oddball, OC and Stigs. Robert Altman movie trying a teen comedy, and it's one of those movies that I don't feel entirely works, but it doesn't matter because it has these terrific characters, these situations, the jokes don't always land, it's visually interesting, it has lots of things going on that really kept me attentive to the film, that made me want to follow the adventures of these guys. And there's something that's drawing me back to the film again and again, and I'm not sure what it is, because it's one that I can clearly see as flawed, but I just don't care. I enjoyed it. And one of the best things about this disc was the feature-length documentary on the making of, which was just wonderful. My number 9 release is Bo Winderberg's The Man on the Roof, a kind of police procedural that was super interesting. We start off with a murder, they then get an investigation into it, up until we get a final tense third of the movie, which was really surprising. And you get drawn into these characters, you get this bloody gore at the start, you think it's going to be a bloody movie, it kind of moves away from that, becomes a more procedural police movie, but nonetheless fascinating. I loved the main character, I loved the situations. That standoff at the end was incredibly tense and thrilling. It had this almost in the face way of shooting this film. You felt as if you were part of the action, you felt as if you were there. It felt kinetic and wild and dangerous, and was an absolute joy. Number 8 on my list is Dennis Hopper's The Hotspot, a neo-noir movie which hits all the right spots. We follow Don Johnson, a character that just rolls into town, gets embroiled in a robbery, gets embroiled with some bad people, and ends up between a couple of femme fatales that are, well, just a little bit smarter than him. Dennis Hopper kind of knows what to do here. He's obviously a fan of this kind of genre. He knows about the lascivious nature of our main character, and keeps brilliant focus on him, even though he's not the smartest or most conniving person within this story. He definitely believes that he's in control here, but he's not. Hopper has a wonderful eye for a cast, for playing out the sequences to get the maximum impact from them. There is a violent moment with Johnson attacking someone in a barn, which is one of the more violent sequences in the film. It's brutal, it's impactful, and it's just confidently shot in a kind of economic way. You know, it doesn't need to be flashy. It allows the story to play out, allows the characters to be front and centre, and it makes all the difference here. Next up, my number 7 is Francis Truffaut's The Bride Wore Black, a movie where it kind of started to click for me with Radiance, with the stuff they were releasing. This is a very Hitchcockian movie where we follow a character looking for revenge for something that's happened to her. The story becomes apparent throughout it, and we get a woman taking down these misogynistic men who have wronged her but don't realise that they have actually wronged her. There are some terrific moments within it, particularly like one in a gent's room as he's slowly dying in front of her, as she just watches what's happening. There's almost a perfunctory nature in the way that she's completing her actions, tasks to be done. Although there is emotion behind it, she doesn't really show it too much. She's just doing the deed that has to be done. There's some interestingly well shot moments that really push the suspense and the thrills, and it has a terrific main performance by Jean Moreau, who is just captivating in this one. This was a real kind of surprise. What I wasn't expecting was the kind of dark sense of humour that was all the way through it as well, which was really great. My number 6 on my list is The Dead Mother, a movie that is by all means reprehensible, having one of the sort of worst main characters I think I've ever encountered. And it's a really dark and bleak tale, but somehow it just kept me engaged, kept me interested in both the bad guys and the victims as we kind of watched this play out. We see a man who has broken into a house at the start and kills a woman while his daughter watches on, or while her daughter watches on. And years later he sees the daughter, who's almost went in on herself, doesn't communicate, is kind of looked after by the nuns there, and he kind of catches her and goes, what if she remembers me? What would I do? And he starts to get a little bit panicky and anxious and kidnaps her, taking her home, chaining her up and keeping her as a prisoner. But he kind of grows an affection towards her. They kind of find things that they enjoy about each other in a way, and it becomes a kind of interesting character study. But there are some immensely horrific sequences that really make you squirm in your seat. There are wonderfully tense sequences that are so expertly put together that they have me clawing at the chairs, the arms of the chair when I was watching this one. Great performances, really well done, horrible characters, but still wanted to see them hopefully survive this one, which was weird. From the Cosa Nostra set is Day of the Owl, starring Franco Nero and Lee J. Cobb. At the start of this one, there's a couple of murders. We see Franco Nero's police captain investigating it, and there is Lee J. Cobb's gangster who kind of rules this roost. And it kind of plays out in an unusual fashion. It feels like a poliziottesque, but doesn't quite fit into a lot of the tropes of that, but it still has that feeling about it. The transfer on it was stunning. I think Lee J. Cobb was pretty great in the film as well, and Nero does what he does best. But there's a sting in the tail to this one. Although it's a mystery and you're following along discovering what's happened to the people at the start, there is a lot more going on in this one, a lot more subtext, more to dig into, and was just a fantastic film. Claudia Cardinelli is in this one as well, and she is just terrific. Number 4 on my list was the first release by Radiance, and that is Big Time Gambling Boss. It was a movie about a gang culture, how they were trying to survive with the loss of a leader, how one man's refusal to take the mantle kind of caused some issues along the way, and it was wonderful. My favourite scene and the standout memory for this one is a sequence in a graveyard where our main character is standing under an umbrella as someone is just lashing out at him, and just the sort of stillness to that sequence, the melancholy to that sequence was something that just rung a bell for me. It kind of stuck in my head. There are many moments of violence and action. There are some wonderful heated discussions in it, but there was something about that sequence in the graveyard that just rang true to me and has stuck in my head. Now into the top 3 of these titles. Number 3 in my list is from the World Noir set, and it's I Am Waiting. This was one of those movies where I felt it was going to be a little bit of a slog to go through. We're introduced to a boxer who now works in a restaurant, who has kind of moved away from societal norms because he killed someone in a bar fight, almost becoming a recluse. He's patiently waiting on a letter from his brother who went to Brazil to buy a farm, and he's just eking out time until he can get away from this place, get away from all the travesty in his past and move on. and one day when he's out walking, he stumbles across a lounge singer who's having a bit of a bad time as well, and these two people connect. And it's watching them connect and just come together in the first third of the movie, which is really kind of heartwarming. Two people, two lost souls who kind of find solace in each other and make a connection. And I was kind of with that until we get the inclusion of the gangsters, and everything is just ramped up, and you start to get a backstory of our boxer restaurateur, of our lounge singer, as we find that their futures are intertwined in more ways than one, as we see some violent sequences, as we discover a mystery that unravels in front of us. Everything about it felt expertly done, and when I stand back looking at the movie as a whole, I feel it's an absolute masterpiece of a film. The way it sets up the characters, the situations, their motivations, and then throws in this kind of pulpy noir story all the way through it that just kept me fascinated. Absolutely outstanding release. One of those movies that I finished and just went and sat and thought about it for a while. Let it wash over me. Terrific movie. Number 2 on my list is Messiah of Evil, a film that is very much akin to, say, Dead and Buried, as I said in my review, and of Let's Scare Jessica to Death. It has a very strong sense of atmosphere. It's not the most polished or perfect movie, but the one thing it does perfectly well is that atmosphere, and it is haunting throughout it, as we have this voiceover of someone who was in this town and started uncovering something, and their relative is now looking for them, as we discover the people moving through this town, as there are sequences of people in danger, including kids, which are really effective. It has a kind of eerie calm about it. There is this sound design of waves and wind that kind of create this illusion of isolation while just watching the movie. It's one that gets under my skin. It's never out and out terror on the screen, but that rousing atmosphere really gets under my skin and affects me while watching this one. Messiah of Evil was a great discovery. I was expecting a kind of pulpy genre horror movie and got something I feel was very much more than that. Now we're on to my favourite movie of the year. One I, again, wasn't expecting much, so I throw it on, check it out and enjoy it. And my favourite title from Radiance from 2023 is Elegant Beast. I absolutely adored this movie from start to finish. I cannot rave about it highly enough, and it's one that you need to have in your collection if you haven't seen it. Following a family of pretty much scam artists who want the easy way through life. They don't want to work for anything, although they do put some amount of effort into getting money out of people. And we're pretty much based for the whole of the film within their one small apartment, as people fluctuate through it, as they are conned, as they sometimes show the upper hand in conversations. It's just all wonderfully complicated and yet entirely simple in the way that it's delivered. There are some terrific directing touches as well. We're in a small cramped space, and sometimes people come in and the rest of the family are hiding and listening intently to what's going on. And the camera placement and the way it kind of moves around these sequences are terrific. The family are both simultaneously likeable and horrid at the same time. You know, they are kind of repulsive in a certain aspect, but I liked spending time with them. 90-minute movie where they get some wins, they get some losses, the way that they talk and behave with each other, the conversations, and particularly the direction of this one was just phenomenal. It was one of those movies where, again, as soon as it finished, I started messaging people going, this is one to watch, this is one to get and check out. Absolutely a phenomenal release, and my favourite title from Radiance for 2023. I can't wait to see what 2024 is going to bring. I know one thing for sure, World Noir Volume 2 is coming, and if it's anything like the first set, I cannot wait to get my hands on that. I think that Radiance have had an absolutely outstanding first year, my favourite label of 2023, and they have done some really special stuff. So bring on 2024. I can't wait to see what you're going to have. What do you think of Radiance's first year in business, first year of putting out titles? Did you love it? What did you find was your favourite title? Do you have a top 5, top 10, top whatever? Let me know in the comment box your favourite titles from Radiance. I'm really curious to see what your thoughts are on this. As always, there is more content up here. You can see more of my stuff. In the description box below are links to Patreon, membership program, and manvfilm.com, all ways in which you can support me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.